Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
Downwind of a bedding area would be your ideal situation.
When it comes to the rut and the timing of the gun season in Minnesota, where do you stand?
I'm sitting in a stand. The wind is in my face, so the wind's in my favor. And you have a buck coming with his nose to the ground.
Yeah, just way cool for him to be able to do that once again.
Broadcasting on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts, or watch on YouTube.
Fish on right now.
Well, we're here at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. And our guest now is Jeremy Smith. I fish, I hunt, and always will.
It's just to look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
A Fish Hunt Forever production. This is Sporting Journal Radio. Well, how did hunters fare during the opening of the gun deer season in Minnesota? We're going to tell you. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. That's Dan Amundson over there. What's up, Dan?
Hey, where's David?
David, he's not over there?
There he is.
Oh.
He's here.
Where did you find that picture?
Oh, Facebook's amazing.
It's so weird to see him without a beard. A guy's had a beard for as long as I've ever known him.
There's a beard there.
Well, kind of. That's like a goatee. That's not even a beard. There's no mustache.
Where is he?
He looks like he's about 14.
Did he quit the show or what? I don't think he's been here in like 6 weeks.
He's not. He's done with farming.
Yeah.
Now he's been deer hunting. I think he's been pouring concrete. But
well, that sounds like so much more fun than talking about hunting and fishing on the radio.
Well, it's getting a little cold. They might be done. So maybe he'll be back next week. David, if you're watching this, comment below. You'll be on the show next week.
I think he even watches the show when he's not here.
Of course, everybody does. What are you talking about? It's his favorite show of all time.
Sure.
No, probably not. No. David won't be on the show this week, but Tyler Scott will be on the show this week. And now that we're into the back half of the gun season, the opening weekend is over. How will your tactics change, or how should your tactics change? We'll talk to Tyler about that. He is having a stellar year deer hunting. He is shooting big deer everywhere. So we're going to talk to Tyler about that in a little bit. Also, Joe Henry will be with us to give us a Lake of the Woods fishing report and talk about. He had a great gun deer season opener too. So all right, we'll find out all about that. Mine was interesting. And no way! Dan's got a really neat story, too, from his opener last weekend. We'll get to all of that and more, but first, Dan, who are the sponsors this week on the show?
Invergrove Toyota is the official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever. When looking for a new rig, head to Invergrove Toyota. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Plan a trip for this winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt. See private land boundaries, recent imagery, offline maps, and Minnesota-specific hunt layers. Download the OnX Hunt app today. Tazen Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tazen Lake. Learn more at tazenlake.com. Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Catch it all at Devil's Lake, or go snow goose hunting. There's a pile of snows around there right now. Prairie Sportsman, we're filming a new season right now. You can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Fish Devil's Lake out of a snow bear this winter. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. Guardian Eagle Resort. Go fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort next summer. Fly directly from the Twin Cities. You can learn more at guardianeagle.com.
Headlines right now. Brought to you by Invergrove Toyota. Headlines. You guys, right now, 1.99% APR for 72 months on a new 2024 Tundra at Invergrove Toyota. Plus, for you, we've got the Fish Hunt Forever deal as well. I gotta look up the details again here real quick. Words. It is $250 off the lowest advertised price and an additional $500 for your trade-in. Visit InvergroveToyota.com/FHF. Fill out the form to save on your next Toyota. All right. A couple of accidents took place, it sounds like, during the gun season this year so far, Dan. A couple of hunters up in northwest Minnesota. One was shot. I guess he was shot in the head somewhere. Haven't heard how he's doing. Don't have any details about that. He was from Dilworth. And then there was another hunter that suffered a single gunshot wound. This according to bringmethenews.com. He suffered a single gunshot wound and was taken by ambulance to a hospital in Fargo for non-life-threatening injuries. And apparently, Dan, there's been 7 hunting-related shootings with injuries through November 5th this year.
Yeah. But can I back up and can we talk about how the state trooper drove his Charger, whatever state troopers are, what sports car they're driving, drove it into the ag field here on the scene?
Oh, yeah.
If you look carefully at that picture, like, just imagine you're just sitting across the road and all of a sudden you see a state trooper guy go ripping across this ag field, just probably doing 70 miles an hour because he can. That's way cool, but not cool that hunters keep shooting each other.
Be very,
Stop breaking the law!
Yes. Be very, very careful out there, please. And also, we wish those 2 hunters that were shot, we wish them well. Hopefully, they're going to be okay. Also, climbing into trees. We heard about somebody, I think it was in Indiana, we heard about somebody falling out of a tree stand, and I think, didn't we hear that he died? I think, something like that. So if you're going to be climbing into a tree, be very careful. I put a new stand up, because I was sitting in, we've got one of those, we call them double wides, Dan, those 2-person ladder stands, and I was sitting in it by myself, and I was just sitting there, and I had my backpack on one side of on the seat, and then I was sliding over because there was a deer. And if you look, and if we can play the audio too, there's audio in that.
We can't.
But you can see that seat, it's on little pegs. There's basically little pegs on each side of that bench seat, so that you can actually flip the seat up and just stand and have that whole platform. It's kind of a nice feature, but if you sit just kind of wonky on the seat, it'll fall off that peg. And right there, my life flashed before my eyes.
Yeah, I stand the whole time. Well, I'll leave the seat down and I'll set my bow in the seat, but I will just stand because that's happened to me so many times. And no matter how many times it happens, your heart is in your throat.
It happened to me 3 times that day. I just happened to be filming on the one, and but thankfully I was strapped in. So be very, very safe out there. Dan, we've seen a lot of nice bucks get shot around here, and it sounds like harvest has been pretty good in Minnesota so far this year, as of this recording.
I think there were 75,073 deer taken in Minnesota this season so far.
As of
November 12th. 54,884 of those are with a firearm, 165 from a muzzleloader, 9,312 from a crossbow, 10,711 with a vertical bow. So...
Well, hopefully your season's gone well, and it's not over yet, so it still could have a successful ending. And Dan, you had a great hunt. I want to talk about that in 1 second, but if you're looking for a world-class cast and blast right now, head to Devil's Lake, North Dakota, catch some walleyes, get ready to catch some perch, shoot some snow geese, shoot some waterfowl, catch it all at Devil's Lake. Visit devilslakend.com to learn more and to plan your next trip. Dan, we went to Saskatchewan and you got to hunt with your grandpa, 84 years old, watched him shoot some snow geese, and then you went up to northern Minnesota for the deer opener and hunted with your other 84-year-old grandpa.
Yeah. So get this. This is how cool my family is. So we've told the story of your dad, who we brought to Saskatchewan, shooting those snow geese with his Model 12 that he's been hunting with his whole life. So that was way cool. And I'm just fortunate enough that my dad married into a family that also likes to hunt and fish. So no matter what side of the family I'm at with for holidays or whatever, we can always talk hunting and fishing. Each side of the family has traditions. So I've been doing Minnesota deer opener up at the cabin, the family cabin, the cabin my grandpa built actually, for I think about 14, 15 years now. My dad's been doing it for I think ever since my sister was born. They've been up there for quite a while. It's not always the most productive deer camp, but it's a lot of fun. We enjoy hanging out, sitting at the cabin. And my grandpa, now he's also 84. My mom's dad is also 84, much like your dad. He likes to just go sit behind the cabin, sit in the woods. He hung a little hanger stand, like the tiny little hanging stand. It was, I don't know if we even had it 3 feet off the ground. Like he was able to just sit right there, get into it. And he brought the same gun that he used 70 years ago to shoot his first deer with. He brought that along on Saturday, and he was able to take a nice doe with that exact same gun.
That's cool.
So, and surprisingly, like I didn't think there was going to be a picture of that first deer, but on the right there, that's the same gun. Forgive me, I can't remember what model that is, but a pretty sweet little lever action. Iron sights, just smokes this doe.
Iron sights.
But Yeah, just way cool for him to be able to do that. Once again, we were able to fill 2 out of 4 tags that week, so last weekend. So it was a lot of fun, but by far that was the highlight of the weekend and one of the highlights of the season. It's we always talk about getting new hunters into the woods or into the field, but it's pretty fun to take old hunters back out too.
Absolutely.
And relive some of those memories. So glad we've all been able to do that this year.
Nice job, Dick. Congratulations. That's pretty cool, Dan. All right. I had an interesting experience in the blind, and I'm going to tell you about that here in just a second, but I also want to tell you about Guardian Eagle Resort, where you can come fish the pristine waters in Ontario at Guardian Eagle Resort. Bring the family and fish for walleyes and pike, 75,000 acres of private water, and you can fly directly from Minneapolis and be at their concrete runway at the lodge in 2 hours. That's slick. Which we did it is really cool. Learn more at guardianeagle.com and watch our video. Somebody snapped me the other day. They were watching our video on YouTube. He's like, "Oh, this is awesome." It's like, you got to feed the fish at the dock. I'm like, it was pretty sweet. So see that video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. And Right On sent over some binoculars and a scope, Dan.
Yep.
Right on.
Right on.
And they have this Primal line. Here's the box. I haven't put the scope on yet. But I put the binoculars on and actually did a little unboxing video.
Put them on? Where'd you put them on?
I did use them. Put them on my chest. Then I put them up to my eyes, and I saw some crazy stuff. I did an unboxing video on Instagram, and let's just play it for people right here. So, standard. Opening up the box. We're getting there. We're getting to the good stuff, I promise. Oh, look, some scope rings.
Sweet.
So ED stands for extra dispersion, by the way. And then as I'm opening these binoculars, I dropped them. So extra dispersion, so that allows more light.
First impressions, I like the way they feel. I like the size. Not too small that they feel like they're going to be underpowered, but also not too big and bulky.
Yeah, I liked, they fit nice.
What he said.
On your chest. They don't get in the way. So that's what they look like. Let's try them out. Here we go. So I went and sat in the ground blind, and this is what I saw. Oh, bow chicka bow bow.
What?
You don't see that every day.
Whoa!
Right there. So thanks, Right On, for the binos. We'll be trying out the scope here very, very soon as well. I'm hoping I'm going to try to get it on my rifle for the trip to Saskatchewan, going up to Trails End Outfitters to hunt deer with Barry Prawl up there. Trevor Montgomery's going to be hanging out. And Danny Thompson and his dad are going to come up. Danny with Garmin, of course. They're going to come up and do some deer hunting with us too. So we'll be filming for the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel and also filming for Trails End Outfitters. And, when you go up there, if you're going to be hunting up in Saskatchewan, you can route your way through Regina. You can either fly direct from Minneapolis and do some stuff in Regina.
You almost said Minneapolis.
Mini like that.
Like everybody says.
Agent.
Everybody's not from here.
That's funny. But we put together a quick little 30-second video of what you can do in Regina during a hunting or fishing trip yourself. For showing us the city, Tourism Regina. We appreciate that. And if you want to do some stuff in Saskatchewan, you can also go to Tasman Lake Lodge for trophy lake trout and monster northern pike. They have 50-inch fish and, world record size lakers. Learn more at tasmanlake.com. And we're going to be doing some of the sports shows. I believe we're going to be doing the new one in Shakopee this year. I got to confirm that, check with the guys, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing that new one. We'll have more details about that show coming up on a future episode of Sporting Journal Radio as well. So get out there, do some hunting. We're going to talk to Tyler Scott in a second. Dan, the rut is on, and we want to do a poll with people real quick. Comment below if you think, because, the gun season, it just happened to open up right as the peak rut activity was taking place. This week, it is going real, real strong. In fact, I got to watch a doe flagging with her tail. At first, I saw this white thing running through the field. I'm like, what the heck? Well, it's a doe just running around with her tail up, it's neat to see the natural behavior like that. And then I watched 2 small bucks just fighting over and just going to town. And they were quite a ways away in the field, and I could still hear the antlers rattling. Like the way the sound carried with those antlers was pretty amazing. So get out there and good luck. And now that the opener is past us and you're getting into the part of the season where there's a little bit more pressure on these deer, what should you do to have more success? We'll ask Tyler Scott that question when we come back. Sick of eating tag soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal win for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20. All right, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on the radio network by demand, sportingjournalradio.com, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube, Spotify, and now we're going to start putting shows on Rumble again, it sounds like, Dan.
Yeah, we'll just cast a wide net.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good. Wasn't quite sure where you were.
I was trying to keep it PG. My mom listens to this.
Some people, I've had people, you guys need to be more edgy. And it's like, no, our moms listen to this show. We can't. Well, it's just a law.
Maybe we already have a secret edgy podcast that they don't know about with different names.
We don't. But
that's what we want them to think.
That's right.
Check us out on Rumble. Maybe it's more edgy.
There you go. We'll make a Rumble only version.
Yep.
That's more something like that. Yeah. Rumble only version. All right. Tyler Scott's with us right now. He's probably like, what are these guys talking about? What am I getting myself into? But Tyler is back on the show to talk deer hunting. How you doing, man?
Good. Still down in Iowa, chasing some deer. And so, yeah, it's the time of the year. And if you're in a tree, man, it can be on fire.
The coveted ground of Iowa. How has it been down there this year?
The last 3 days we've had torrential downpours, so it's been a little bit tough for deer movement. I was fortunate enough on Saturday morning to fill my tag on a pretty decent buck down here, but a couple other guys are still grinding, and it's been a grind between the weather. We're seeing some lockdown, so those bucks just aren't moving like they were maybe a week, 10 days ago.
Now, so did you see down in Iowa, do you think things got started a little earlier down there, or how different do you think it is between Iowa and Minnesota?
That's a great question. We arrived on Friday, so that would have been the first. We did Halloween with the kids, got up early the next morning and left. And we could tell from the cameras that we had down here for a couple months, the scrape activity definitely peaked or tailored off the last 2 weeks. And you could definitely tell they were chasing, a lot of blurs on camera coming by, nothing really sitting in front of the camera for us. We figured the chase was on, and, from the get-go, the first 2 days were good weather, a lot of chasing, but even like doe movement is very little right now. This morning it was perfect conditions out there. We finally had a break in the weather, clear skies, pressure rising, and there just was not a lot of movement. So I just get a feeling that those does are either pinned down with a buck or they just don't want to be seen because they're sick of getting harassed the last couple weeks.
That's interesting. We're recording this on November 6th. We're recording a little early for this show because of travel and different things. But today, on November 6th, just literally in the last couple of days, I've just started to see that activity here where we're at in Minnesota. So it's kind of interesting that things could be, and maybe we're just not seeing some of the movement, but literally this morning we were hearing reports of bucks chasing does all over the place. And I've only heard of one or two other cases of chasing in the last couple of days. So it seems like things were just starting to get fired up right before the gun opener up here.
Yeah. So we got, the opener just coming up here in a couple of days. And it's going to be one of the latest openers I can remember having in a long time, so we're going to be right in the heart of that rut time, those does coming into that peak estrus. I think you can look at, let's say the 12th of November being the peak of the bell curve, and we're going to be right in the middle of it. So it's going to be time on stand and trying to catch, if you're looking for that mature buck, trying to catch him when he's going from one doe to the next. Otherwise, it could be a little stagnant.
Well, I'm hoping I'm timing it right because I'm going to Saskatchewan on the 12th, so for a deer hunt up there. And
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. Going up to Trails End Outfitters to do that, and I'm excited about that. But I'm hoping to fill my bow tag, or I did buy a muzzleloader, so I'm going to sit with the muzzleloader too during the gun season this year for the first time. I'm hoping to get that filled before I go. So now, when it comes to the rut and the timing of the gun season in Minnesota, where do you stand on how Minnesota seasons are structured?
I think I'm the minority in the sense that I wish that Minnesota would move the gun season out of the rut. Right. Do I think that's reality? Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not, because you got to tailor to the majority of people, right? And if we move it back to, say, the first weekend in December, like Iowa, or the weekend before Thanksgiving, like Wisconsin, you're messing with a huge tradition, right?
Yeah.
But if we truly wanted to preserve more bucks, manage for better quality age, do I think we should move the gun season? Of course. Do I think it's reality? Probably not.
That is so much of the management done by, whether it's a DNR or game fish and parks or whatever state you're looking at. There's obviously some science and research and a biological impact involved in decision making, but so much of it becomes societal as well. Like how are the hunters of Minnesota going to utilize this hunting opportunity, or how are anglers going to utilize the walleye opportunity that we have in Minnesota? It's managed so much for the people as well. It's hard to make that decision, and you're right. There's so many people that deer hunt, particularly the gun season. There's just no way you can move dates. I mean, it's bad enough when you have the calendar moving those dates for you in itself. But to actually pick up and move dates and try something new, man, there'd be a riot, revolution.
It would be. And you look at any state in my lifetime. I mean, I'm only 37, but I don't believe there's been a state that's, other than say like just a minor weak shift in some of those Western states when they do their big game season settings every, say, 4 to 8 years, where you might shift it a week or two. But shifting it a month, I don't think that would be something that would happen.
I know we grew up hunting in Wisconsin, and that Thanksgiving week became such a tradition, and a lot of guys, they'll take work off and just hunt the whole 9 days straight through. And we used to do that a lot too. I know, Dan, you're still going to go over there this year, I think, but I haven't done it now for a few years. And it was so much fun. And we had a huge family, a huge group that all used to hunt together. And it's not as big as it once was. And some people have moved away. For one, we moved further away. I moved further away, so it's a little bit harder now. And I do so much hunting in other places. It's hard to get back for it, but it was such a tradition that, you were there to deer hunt, but you were there to spend Thanksgiving. You were there to see friends and family, and, all gather around wherever you had your deer hanging and take your annual picture, whatever it was. It's such a tradition. People used to talk about trying to move those dates in Wisconsin, and I've had many interviews with the DNR over there. Like, there's no way we can. The Wisconsin deer hunters are, more armed than a lot of countries in the world. There's, we can't mess with their traditions. So, it is what it is. I mean, nowadays though, you have so many opportunities to get out and hunt at different times of year with different, whether it's a bow or a muzzleloader, or now with crossbows, whatever, you can get out there and
here we go.
I'm not going to go down the crossbow. I'm done.
The show political.
I'm done talking about it. I've made my feelings known about crossbows, and it is what it is. Whatever. It's one of those things where it doesn't look like anything's going to change, so might as well just not even waste my breath on it. But Tyler, I wanted to talk to you a little bit now that by the time this airs, the opening weekend has come and gone. From a deer hunter's perspective, what changes for you? And I don't know how much gun hunting you do, but obviously if you haven't killed a deer yet, you're probably still going to be out there bow hunting or whatever. You're still going to be deer hunting after the gun opener starts. I want to talk about how maybe some of your tactics change, some of your priorities change, and things like that. And I'm going to have you break down some of that. We're going to take a break here in just a second, and then I'll have you break down some of that stuff. But before we get into that, this year, how many states are you hunting in?
We started there's a group of us that went to Montana, and I was fortunate enough to shoot an elk and a mule deer with my bow out there early on in September. So that was a good way to get started.
I have freezer space available, by the way. I know where this is going. So,
yeah. A couple weeks ago, there was a couple of us that went down to a reservation in South Dakota, and we were chasing mule deer and whitetails, and I was able to get a pretty decent whitetail down there as well. And now down here in Iowa, and gotta get back home, back to Minnesota.
That's cool. Like, do you have, obviously no meat's going to go to waste, of course, but do you have a target, like how many animals you want to shoot to feed your family each year?
Like when we went to Montana, there's a group of 4 of us, and those 2 animals that I harvested were the only 2 that our group were able to get. So we split that up. My grandpa always likes getting some meat. He isn't hunting anymore. But yes, I don't buy any beef anymore. So there's kind of I like to be able to get rid of everything in my freezer, and I kind of evaluate as the season goes on, and I like to keep a nice par stock.
So
I don't like to overdo it.
Let's just back up a second. So out of your group, the only animals that got killed were from you. You killed both of them?
You got to get a little bit lucky, Bret.
Did you rub it in a little bit?
No, I didn't. We all had a great week. We all had encounters, but it's bow hunting. You know how it goes, and everything's got to go exactly right.
Gosh, Montana. I've never done it. I want to do it. I'm going to have to do it one of these years here very soon. All right. Tyler Scott is with us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more from Tyler here in just a little bit. It doesn't get much better than fresh perch and fresh walleye. If you're looking for an exciting winter fishing destination, come to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort is on the ice with a fleet of snow bears, keeping you mobile and warm so you can stay on the roaming schools of fish. Haybale Heights on the east end of Devil's Lake has knowledgeable guides, comfortable cabins, and their own lake access, making your trip as successful and stress-free as possible. To book your trip, go to haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. We're back, Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on the network. Hopefully your deer season or waterfowl or upland or maybe you're fishing. Hopefully it's going well. Hopefully you're spending time in the outdoors. It is the best time of year, and Tyler Scott joins us right now to talk deer hunting and what he does once the gun season opens, because I always tell people once that gun opener happens, everything changes. Take everything you saw from earlier in the season, and you can just about throw most of it out the window. Obviously, if you got some big bucks around, they might still stick around, or some does or whatever. But definitely things are going to be moving. Things are going to be changing. The other night, it was kind of cool. I finally brought out some tools. I brought out my grunt call. And just for fun, I had a little, as soon as I told this story last week, but as soon as I climbed into the stand, I got in late, to be fair. I got out there late, climbed up, grabbed my bow, and looked up, and there was a small buck right in front of me. He was there maybe a hair earlier than I expected, but I was definitely late. But he kind of just wandered off, and I grunted, and then I waited about 10 minutes, and I went to grunt again, and I was glassing, and I grabbed my grunt call, and I blew into the wrong end of it, Tyler. It was kind of hilarious. Like I said last week, it sounded like the noise a 3-year-old makes on a duck call. I almost started laughing in the stand. I was like, are you kidding me right now? And I waited another 5-10 minutes, and I just grunt one short little grunt, and that little buck came right back and ended up walking right to the stand and sat underneath the stand for like 3 minutes, just sniffing the stand a little bit. And then before he wandered off, never spooked him. I mean, I wasn't going to shoot him, obviously, but he hasn't really figured out life, I don't think, quite yet. But it was kind of a neat encounter anyway, and I am 100% convinced, though, that he responded to that grunt call. Now, once the gun season starts, how do things change for you? And are you using calls, decoys? Are you rattling? What changes for you once the gun season opens up?
It's a transition from, for sure, hunting food in end of September, October for myself. And you can see that transition start to take place probably the third week in October, where the does don't like to be out in the open as much, at least where I'm hunting at. They don't like being harassed as much, so you definitely find that they resort to that thicker cover. Now, once that rut hits, hunting food can be really dull. I mean, obviously you're going to have a buck checking it every once in a while for some does. I would say thick cover, downwind of a bedding area would be your ideal situation. Hunting out, like I said, the food plots, they become really stagnant this time of year. And they'll pick back up again, of course, late season. But, with rifle season here in Minnesota, landing smack dab right in the middle of the rut, I would resort to thick cover. And like I said, downwind of that thick cover. If you can have a stand site so your scent isn't blowing into that bedding area, that's going to be the most ideal situation. And should put you right in the driver's seat for having that buck cruise and checking that downwind side.
Are you doing any gun hunting, or are you just sticking to bow the whole time?
I'll be honest. I shouldn't even have to worry about going out to the woods. I had my opportunity the first sit of the year in Minnesota.
Oh, really?
And I unfortunately made a non-lethal hit on my target deer.
Gotcha.
I waited 16 days, and I was going to wait until he showed back up or I had confirmation he was either alive or dead. And he showed back up, so that gave me the go-ahead to start hunting again. And I was only able to make one more sit kind of before these last couple trips out of state. He is still hanging around, so with any little bit of luck, maybe he'll show up during the gun season for me. So
tell me about the experience.
Oh man, he read the script, other than he came about 5 minutes too late. For me, one particular property I hunt, end of September, early October is my best hunting on that particular property. If you can get a cold front, either a 10 to 15 degree temp drop, clear skies, high pressure. A lot of times I can see just about every deer on that property. And he showed up with about 20 minutes of light left, and he just took his sweet old time, and he got to me right at end of legal shooting light. And I just hit him high. There's nothing. I made the mistake, and I did not settle my pin down where I should have, and the arrow zipped through high and followed him. I let him be for 3 hours that night, followed him 300 yards that night, and came back the next day and followed for another 300 yards. But it was so minimal that I was fairly confident he was going to survive. But until you see him again, just an uneasy feeling.
Nice deer?
Yeah, he is. He's a good deer. Yeah.
I notice you haven't talked about how nice he is since he is still walking out there. I get it.
He's not a giant. He's a 6x5, probably like 150-inch deer.
Oh, so, yeah, okay.
Just a nice deer.
Where did you say that was? That's asking for a friend. Well, it's good to know. I mean, you always worry about that when you can't find a deer. There's nothing worse than that feeling of, God dang it, is he going to die 5 miles away, or somewhere else, going to get eaten by coyotes? You're wasting. I mean, it sucks to waste a tag, but at the same time, you don't want to see an animal suffer like that, and you don't want to lose your deer, especially if it's a good one, and it sounds like it's a good one. So it's always a tough feeling. So it's good to hear that you're going to get probably a second crack at them.
I hope. I mean, I absolutely hate losing deer. I've done it before. It'll probably happen again. It's just a lot of sleepless nights when it does happen. I just put so much time, money, effort into it, and to have that opportunity squandered, it's a tough one to swallow.
So that was a buck that you knew about. You were hunting them, and
yep.
Did you say it was the first sit you saw him, or just early?
Very first sit. Yeah,
that's the worst. And I'm terrible at it too. Like a lot of times my first sit is working the kinks out, right? Making sure all the gear is ready to go, because I didn't prep as much as I probably should have. So I've had that happen where I've gotten busted. Like I remember I told the story last week too, so I won't repeat it necessarily, but I was hunting a new spot, and I had a couple of nice bucks on camera, and I was just so excited to hunt it. I looked at the weather, and the wind was going to change, pretty close to near the end, like an hour left. It's like, well, I'll just climb down. I just want to go out there and glass it and see what's moving. And sure enough, the wind started to shift, and before I climbed down, there was a big buck that busted me. Never saw him again the rest of the season. So that first sit is it can be a tough one sometimes, but. So you brought up something, Tyler, that I wanted to ask you about. You talked about how this time of year, they may not be hitting food plots. So when you're out there designing a property, or getting to a property and surveying and saying, okay, well, you're moving, or maybe you've got a stand set up for this time of year around more of some bedding cover. Like that's something you can plan out when you're designing some land.
Ideally, if you've got the right property for it. The one particular place that I said hunts really well early on in the year for us, my access points to my bedding doesn't serve very well for a morning hunt year round. It's just a tough one to access. It's more of an evening set. And so this time of the year, it can be long, stagnant sits, even though there's a ton of deer there. Our other one over by Pelican hunts a lot better for this time of the year. It's more timber. We recently had it logged. So there's a lot of bedding, good bedding, and access points where we can get into that downwind side of those bedding areas. So I'm very fortunate. I feel very lucky to have, two pieces that are ours, and I know who's on it and who's in and out of there at all times.
Yeah.
And that's the ideal situation, of course, when you can have those pieces to manage yourself. But not everybody has that opportunity. Yeah. It's getting harder and harder for people to have that with prices and everything these days. And I get it. But I would just, if you're a public land hunter, if you're a permission property hunter, this time of the year, concentrate on those areas where they're either secluded, minimal human intrusion, thick, dense cover, whether you're in bluff country, looking for maybe a north-facing slope, or those points, or those tops where they'll be bedding, or a swampy areas, sitting downwind of a red willow swamp, trying to catch those bucks cruising, or coming out with their doe in the evenings right at last light. But like I said, bedding, thick bedding cover, dense security cover is the name of the game for me this time of year.
How have numbers fared, you think, this year? And then do you deal with wolves much up there?
So we've got one piece over kind of in that Wadena area, and there are some timber wolves in that area that come through from time to time. When they do show up, you can definitely see the body language of the deer changes dramatically. I'm very thankful that they aren't there year round like a lot of people in that northeastern part of the state, and that's extending west and south, as we're all well aware of. Our piece over by Pelican, we don't have any timber wolves over there, thankfully. But yeah, they're a game changer when they show up. As far as numbers go, that late winter of was it 22 and 23, where we kind of got that late spring. You can definitely tell we had some fawn mortality. I found a number of fawns. Neighbors found fawns, especially in the springtime after snow melt. So I feel like our numbers are okay. They aren't in overabundance. There's definitely a year class, especially that 22. I think that's the one that was worse. There's a big year class missing in pockets of the state there, and I can see that on ours as well.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I know you're busy down there, and you came in. You're down in Iowa doing some deer hunting. We'll let you get back at it. And I know you got some buddies that you're helping out down there right now. So congrats on what's been a great season so far, it sounds like. Good luck the rest of the way. Good luck with your hopefully a second encounter with that buck that you encountered on the opening sit. And thanks for the time today on the show, Tyler Scott. Appreciate it.
Thanks, gentlemen.
If you want to catch a big walleye, go where the big walleyes are. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world, with a variety of resorts and lodging facilities offering full-service fishing. Lake of the Woods is also home to sturgeon, sauger, perch, trophy pike, muskie, smallmouth bass, burbot, and more. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods today. Go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com. All right, now time to check in with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism here on Sporting Journal Radio. Joe, how's it going?
Bret, I got a feeling that you are probably really anxious when you're sitting in your office during deer hunting season.
Yeah, this has been probably the biggest case of buck fever I've had in many, many years. Like I haven't hardly pheasant hunted, Joe. We've got ducks and geese around. I haven't done any waterfowl hunting. I've been sitting every single morning, every single day. I've been sitting later into the day. Over the weekend, I sat more into the middle part of the day. Anyway, I'm kind of itching to get back out there and then taking a trip to go deer hunting too. So I am all about whitetail this year, Joe.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw some really cool Snapchats from you, and one of them was of a kind of smaller buck, kind of trotting up that road and eating some. I don't know if they're plums or what they were out of that tree. And then the other one, I think you shared after Saturday. I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday, but it was that buck going through that real tall grass.
Oh, yeah. Well, and he was coming down a trail, and it might have even been that same buck as before. There were two smaller ones that I could have shot them both number of times. They were just circling around my stand all weekend long. And this one, there's some tall blue stem, and there were some trails kind of mowed through, and he was coming right at me down the trail, and I figured, same thing, I'll snap it, get a little video. It's kind of neat. And then he turned and just went straight into the thick grass. Like every time you think deer are going to be real predictable and stay on the trail because they love trails, then he just turned and went right down through the thick grass. And I have no idea why, it's amazing how much they disappear in there. And that's why that video was as long as it was, Joe, because I wanted to show just how easily they can disappear in that tall grass. When people think, and I don't necessarily like seeing trees get cut down as much as they've gotten cut down here in western Minnesota on the prairie. But when people say deer need trees in the prairie, they probably like the trees in the woods better, but they can disappear into that grass pretty easily.
That's good cover too. I'll tell you that story, when you talk about deer being unpredictable and where they're going to go, and they have that sixth sense, right? It just seems like they have that sixth sense about feeling energy or something. I don't know what it is. But one of the things I've learned over the years, and I don't know if I'm doing it right because I'm not nearly as avid deer hunter as you are, although I hunt every year. But when I have an opportunity, when a deer is coming near me, and I'm gonna take a chance at harvesting that deer, right? One of the things I've learned is take the first decent shot I have and don't wait for a perfect shot, because I've had it happen where when I wait for the perfect shot, it never happens because that deer makes the wrong turn, it busts me, something happens. So whenever I got that first opportunity, good ethical shot, I will take it first time, every time.
Yeah. They don't always come right to where they're supposed to. Like nope. you try to text them ahead of time, and they just don't always respond.
I'll tell you though, don't you think, man, I've had it before. It's unbelievable where I'm sitting in a stand, the wind is in my face, so the wind's in my favor, and you have a buck coming with its nose to the ground, and it's way out there, and when it goes behind a tree, I raise up so it doesn't see my movement, and I'm waiting, and that buck gets quite a ways out, and all of a sudden, for some reason, it might stop and know something's up. Yeah. How in the heck, with the wind, a good wind in my face, it's like that sixth sense, you know what I mean?
I actually missed a buck the other day, Joe. And it's funny that you talk about being predictable and all that as well, because I had another buck coming through that tall grass going the other way. And when I first saw him, I thought it was that same little one because he was right in the same area. And I looked and I was like, oh, actually that rack looks a little bit bigger. But I couldn't see it very well in that tall grass. And then he kind of got away from me, and I was just filming it with my phone. I'm like, I'm not going to shoot this deer. And then he got a little bit further away from me where the grass opened up a little bit, and he turned his head to the side, and I could see that the rack went outside his ears. And I was like, oh. And I got a little bit better look at him. I'm like, no, that's a buck I want to shoot. And by that time, he was getting out quite a ways, and I was using a muzzle loader, so I had a little bit more range, but I had kind of a tough shot, and I took the first decent shot that I had, and I just missed him. But it's funny how, I was hoping he was going to go one way, and he went the other way. You just never really know.
You just never really know. But the other thing too, though, is that you didn't have much of a choice because you thought it was a certain size deer until it got out there and turned its head.
He was at 40 yards. I mean, I could have easily shot him if I would have had a better look at him and was able to tell how big he was right away. But I missed Joe. But it sounds like you had a little bit of success over the weekend.
I did. Yeah, I did. I hunt. So for me, Bret, and we talked about this, but for me, deer hunting is first and foremost about getting out in the woods, tradition with family, in this case, some dear cousins of mine that are very close. And we've been hunting for years and years together. So that's my hunting party. And it's looking forward to getting out there together and spending time together and seeing we have the privilege of hunting on some private land of a farmer that we've known for decades. And it's as much enjoyable to go out and see those guys and have them come out and be part of our party as well as anything. And then, of course, sitting in the woods for me, got a pretty busy schedule, pretty high strung, I guess. And, getting out in the woods for me, just sitting and, I want to harvest a deer and I'm going to try to harvest a deer and I'm going to be competitive about it and everything else. That's how I am. But, just being out there and smelling everything and slowing down, watching the chickadees and the squirrels and the swans and the eagles and, you hear turkeys, you hear owls. I mean, it's so freaking special. And yeah, so opening night, Saturday of Minnesota Gun, morning, saw nothing, didn't see a deer. Somebody in our party whacked a couple of does. So we party hunt, and we had 5 of us in our party. So a couple of does were harvested, in the morning, and that was good. Okay, hey, we broke the ice, and so then we went out for the afternoon, sit, and I saw some movement after sitting for quite a long time, and the light starts getting a little bit lower. I noticed some movement through the woods, and sure enough, horns, and they were a nice rack. So I saw this deer. And as it came, it took a turn and kind of walked up the hill a little bit behind some thicker brush and trees. When it did that, that's when I raised my gun up. And I was waiting for it to come out, and I was ready to, to take a shot. And it didn't come out. It went up there and stopped, evidently. And so I'm holding this gun now up in a shooting position for about a minute and a half, I suppose 2 minutes maybe. And it started getting heavy. It started, my arm started shaking a little bit. So I had to very slowly just lower one part of the gun down just to brace it. And then I noticed some movement in the field. I'm hunting in the woods. I'm on a hill, woods, and I'm up on top of the hill in a stand. And then I'm right on the edge of a field. And I noticed a little bit of movement in the field. There were a couple of does, and that buck went up to look at those does. I had a shot at one of the does. Of course, I have a doe permit or doe tag, and obviously with that buck there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait for this buck and see what happens here. And so what happened was after about 2 minutes. Then that buck turned and didn't go in the field, but rather came back through the woods. First shot I got, I took it, and I could tell the deer was hit hard, and I took another shot as it was running, and I don't know if I hit it or not at that point. And then my gun jammed, and that deer was broadside right in front of me, and I tell it was hit hard, and on the side of a hill, and my gun was jammed, and nothing I could do. So that deer just ended up making it to the bottom of the hill, and then it tipped over and such. But come to find out, what happened was, and this is my mistake, but if you remember during COVID, ammunition was really hard to get. And
there's your buck, Joe. Nice.
It's not a bad buck, isn't it? Yeah, it's we certainly wouldn't say it's a trophy buck, but it's really a respectable, nice animal.
Well, he's got some character on the rack there, which I think is kind of neat.
Yeah, you see a little kicker tine on that one side. Mm-hmm. Kind of a little kicker there, and it's just a nice big deer. I mean, I tell you what, I think they get bigger as you get older when you got to drag them up the hill.
No, for sure.
But my gun jammed, and that was my bad because I had held on to ammunition because it was so hard to get during COVID. That I held on to some, and there was some rust on the brass of the shotgun slug. And that was, so I got rid of all my ammunition, any kind of speck of rust at all. So that was really probably my bad for using that. I didn't know that it would cause that much of a problem, and it did. So luckily I got away with it. And then, I tell you, dragging that deer up a hill, somebody in the party, Scotty, helped me out, helped me drag it. We both, after I gutted it, we both grabbed an antler. And Brad, I got to tell you something. Things changed, man. Back in the day, I used to take pride dragging a big deer like that up that hill. Yeah. Not stop until I got to the top. You know what? I had another person helping me, and I had to stop 4 times. It was a big deer, and you're pulling it over logs and through brush, and it was a steep hill, and it was a big hill. So I'm just saying, but things change, and it just tells me I have to get on the elliptical a little bit more.
Well, don't we all? Absolutely. Well, and it's the worst time.
By the way, I also shot some does that night. So and it was really funny because I shot some does. We party hunt, so we had a nice shoot that night. The next day, didn't see a deer. So how quickly things change. And was that because of weather patterns? Was it because they're getting skittish because of the shooting? I mean, who knows why, right?
Yeah, maybe both. Definitely, the shooting will definitely start to put a little pressure on them. There's no question about that. And it's, I mean, you guys maybe wiped out the herd. You had a pretty good couple of days in there. No deer left. No, that'll definitely happen. And then, we had a couple of days of, I can't remember the weather on Saturday and Sunday, but I know there were a couple of days this year that have been pretty breezy, and that kind of shuts everything down. We had some real heavy winds, and also took one of my ground blinds away, but we won't talk any more about that right now. Let's talk about Let's talk about getting ready for ice fishing, because that's what's happening up at Lake of the Woods, Joe.
Our resorts, and I think a lot of the guys and gals up there take a little time off to go deer hunting. Certainly, it's part of the tradition. But I'll tell you, this time of the year, it's like when you talk to one of them, it's not like it's vacation, I'm kicking back. There's never that time when you're a resort owner. They're all getting ready for that ice fishing season right now, and that entails the light ice rigs. Up at Lake of the Woods, we normally get day houses out around December 10th, give or take, based on Mother Nature. But early in the year, the resorts normally will take you to the fish houses just to ensure that people are staying on the proper marked trails, and it makes life easier. So a light ice rig, maybe these little light rigs, and it's so funny because geo trackers and things like that, they're very, very light. They're easy to work on, and used to be they're all over. I think people have learned so that now they're hard to find, but they're getting their geo trackers, and there's the Suzus ready and all that stuff. And then they're the Suzu Samurai. And then they're getting the light ice rigs, the trailers. And they bring people out on a trailer that's an enclosed, heated trailer with extra suspension on it. So they have a very light ice rig to go in that early ice to take people out to the fish houses. Day houses go out first. Once the ice thickens, they start plowing a road. Eventually, they'll start allowing SUVs, and then light pickup trucks, and then heavier pickup trucks, and they'll let you know for each ice road what the rules are. And then, of course, as time goes on, the resorts will get out the sleeper fish houses that people can come up and rent and stay overnight on the ice if you'd like to, and that all kind of transitions. And people are also getting their stakes ready for marking trails. I know people that mark the snowmobile trails that go across Lake of the Woods up to the northwest angle. The snowmobiles are making sure they're ready. All the different markers you need to mark a 42-mile trail up to the angle, all that's getting ready. I mean, there's so much to get ready. Ice bridges, ice augers, fish houses, putting some new fish houses into the mix, taking some old fish houses out and retiring them, painting them, whatever. There's so much to do. Of course, you got your cabins. This is a time you clean your kitchen thoroughly and you clean your bar thoroughly. And, there's so much to do as a resort owner. You've heard me say this before, but, we rival a resort owner as almost like a dairy farm, because these guys and gals have to be on all the time and they work so hard at it. But because they're working hard, that's what enables ice fishing to be really easy and enjoyable for the average person who wants to come up and just have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's also, fishing's probably pretty good right now, up there right now too. I mean, I know it's starting to get a little cold. It's been a little breezy maybe, but I'm guessing people are catching fish that aren't deer.
Oh gosh, it's kind of a broken record for the last 3 or 4 weeks, really. The fishing is just phenomenal, and it's a jig bite. They're getting them out in front of the South Shore in Lake of the Woods. They're getting them in 4 Mile Bay. They're getting them up and down the Rainy River. The shiners are running in the river right now. And so there's walleyes, they're going all over the place. And of course, up at the northwest angle, I mean, with all the islands and the neck down areas and points and reefs, the fishing's been great. Seen a lot of big muskies on Facebook from the northwest angle and that part of Ontario, the Lake of the Woods. So it's just been, fishing's so strong right now. We all say during deer hunting, it's like, it's hard. I wish they weren't at the same time, but fishing's just phenomenal right now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Joe. Well, if people want to get a winter trip planned or maybe sneak up there right now, what should they do to get more info?
You know what? The most information is going to be on our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.